Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me the very talented Maria Khan, who is a part of the Pakistan women's national football team and also a domestic footballer for WAPDA's women's team in Pakistan. Great to finally have you, Maria. I mean, it's obviously we've been in touch before, but finally good to have you on the podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Really excited to see you guys again for the championship.
Yeah, I'm same. So, you're going to be playing in the upcoming National Women's Football Championship, which starts on 8th March. So I just want to let everyone know that Maria and a host of other talented female footballers are going to be playing in that tournament. And we're going to be covering it. With videos, with interviews, with a whole host of things. So do check it out on our channel. Do subscribe. Do follow us on social media. Maya, just before I chat about your football journey, I see some great football shirts behind you with a lot of signatures. I mean, not just one, like multiple signatures. So I mean, and they're, oh wow. So okay, 2 Real Madrid shirts, 2 Arsenal shirts. Are you a half and half? Are you one of those with the half and half scarves?
You know what? When I got married, I had no choice. I had to be an Arsenal fan. My husband is a really, really big Arsenal fan, has been since he was a young boy. And then the Real Madrid, Zidane, he has his heart. I think apart from me, Zidane has his heart. So I'm guilty by association.
Are you jealous? I would be jealous of Zinedine, you know.
Zidane's a tough competitor, and I think he is challenging me for my husband's heart. So I am a little bit.
So obviously you supported. You started supporting Arsenal, or you grew fond of them. But before that, did you have any affiliation with any team growing up?
I'm almost embarrassed to say I grew up in the US and all we had was Major League Soccer.
Which is not so bad these days,
Huh?
Which is not so bad these days, if I'm being honest.
Not these days, but when I was growing up.
Yeah. I remember
you were almost
ashamed. They had penalties where they were like hockey. Have you seen that video? It's amazing. It's amazing. You have to check it out. It's like, so it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's like, in MLS, they didn't have penalties to decide a championship match. They had, so the attacking player would start somewhere like way behind the penalty spot, run at the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper would have to it was like a free flow one-on-one. It was like mad. I mean, that's something.
MLS.
Yeah. So
only
speaking
in Major League Soccer.
So speaking of that, I mean, you obviously grew up in the US and you started playing football there. So can you tell us a bit about how you started and why football? Because there are a host of sports available, in the US.
Yeah. So again, like you hit the nail on the head. Soccer, football wasn't the only sport I played growing up. I actually I liked basketball a lot more, but soccer just kind of took off for me. I started playing at the age of 6 or 7. And have been playing ever since. But also, that is something like in the US, like all at the same time, different seasons. I played softball, I played volleyball, ran cross country, did basketball and soccer, but basketball and soccer were the kind of 2 major sports that I took pretty seriously. And then just was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to a Division I university.
That's awesome.
And I got to play, I had the opportunity to play for the University of Denver, where I was a goalkeeper. So all my playing experience in the US was as a goalkeeper. So it's only until recently, until I moved to the UAE, that I actually became a field player. So it made a big transition.
So speaking of that transition, like why did it happen? I mean, you could start off by telling us why you chose to become a goalkeeper and then how you transitioned or why you transitioned into becoming a midfield player now.
Yeah, so I think it was way early on. I think I was maybe 10 or 11 and I was at practice and the goalkeeper didn't show up that day. And so I put my hand up, I volunteered.
The classic story.
Okay, I'll go and goal. And then ever since then, I was in goal for majority of my playing career. And then when I came to the UAE, I was like, okay, no one knows me. No one knows I'm a goalkeeper.
I'm not going to raise my hand this time.
Yeah, I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
I definitely learned my lesson. I was like, nope, keep your hand down.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was I just started playing in the field, but because in the US, they expect the goalkeepers to be just as fit and just as good on the ball as the field players. So I remember in university, our training sessions, we would spend the first 20 minutes, doing fitness and technical ball work with the field players. And then it was only after that kind of beginning warm-up stage that we broke out and did our goalkeeping work. So for me, it's, the field work, the ball control, the fitness, it was nothing new.
Right. So that helped you. Yeah, your training. Yeah. So interesting.
It wasn't as hard of a transition as people would think.
Right. So it's interesting because I recently talked to Karachi United's goalkeeper, Daniel Naeem, and his story was kind of similar as to how he became a goalkeeper. He used to play futsal with his friends when he was young, and just one day the coach asked the group who wants to be a goalkeeper, and he was the one like you who raised his hand, and then he just became a goalkeeper. So did you enjoy it? Did you like it?
Honestly, I love it.
Really?
They say you have to be a little weird to be a goalkeeper. There's something not 100% straight, up there, a screw or two or loose. But I think for me, what I really enjoy is just, being able to, as a goalkeeper, just being able to see the whole game happening in front of you. You being able to almost control the game from the back and, work with your defense to, help them out. I miss it. It's funny because it's like when I'm in goal, I miss playing out on the field. And when I'm in the field, I miss playing in goal. Yeah,
I'm sure. But so you bring up a very interesting point about, organization and that ability to see the defensive line where the other players are. Has that helped you moving into midfield? That sixth sense of, telling your teammates where to be yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think because I spent so many years watching, the full game from the back, as a central midfielder, it's, you almost know where those pockets are to play through balls, to your teammates, and being able to break down a defense, because I've had so many goals scored on me, throughout my playing careers, and you learn from it, So I think having that opportunity to be able to understand, where defenses break down, if it's a flat line, if it's, the center backs playing too high, whatever it is, as a central midfielder, I now look for those things. I'm like, okay, if the defense is flat and I know I have speed on my wings, I'm going to play a through ball between that outside back and that center back and let my winger run onto it. I think also it's helped me a lot more with my finishing.
Really?
Because again, as a goalkeeper,
you're thinking like a goalkeeper.
So many forwards. Sorry?
You're thinking like a goalkeeper, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, what is the goalkeeper expecting me to do? At first, I'm not going to lie. I used to shoot the ball like I was shooting a goal kick or kicking a goal kick.
That's certainly not what they're expecting. So, you're good there.
Yeah, I played the part, right?
Yeah.
But it was only really until kind of my husband took me to the side and was like, Maria, what are you doing? There's no need to go for power, work on placing the ball. And again, like I said, that goalkeeping background also has helped me to understand, what goalkeepers look for, and kind of which is where to place the ball. And that's what finishing is. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So just going back a bit, so you played in Division 1, which is the highest level, I think. When did you seriously start thinking of football as a career for yourself?
I don't think I've ever thought of it as a career for myself. I think because in the US at the time, when I graduated university, which was in 2013, the women's league was still very volatile.
Okay.
The NWSL was, 1 year we would have it, 1 year we wouldn't have it. So there was still that inconsistency, whereas now, it's consistent.
Yeah.
So for me at the time, it wasn't the right time. And then I came to the UAE to get my MBA, and have just kind of stayed on the corporate path now. But again, me still being in that organization and still working on, my professional career, in corporate, it still allowed me to kind of have my passion, have my dream, because they are so supportive of what I do.
That's nice.
And a lot of companies, yeah, it's really nice. And, a lot of companies, they appreciate what sports teach people. And, because again, sports is not just physical activity. You learn how to be a good teammate. You learn how to communicate. You learn how to lead. Discipline for sure. It teaches people how to be on a schedule, how to multitask. So I think, it's been nice to be able to be in kind of both spaces, still, have my career, being with my coworkers, my colleagues, as well as, kind of having a life outside of work, which is obviously my passion and, what I really, really enjoy.
That's awesome, because I don't think a lot of people expect you to have such a balanced lifestyle, also working corporate, but also being really good at football and pursuing it, because obviously on social media, you're always out there working on the training pitch, you're always putting the hard work. So it's nice to see that, you've got that balance going on both sides. So
the days are exhausting.
Obviously.
The days are long, the days are exhausting, even for, the women's championship coming up, like my job, they know I'm going to be in Pakistan for the month, but I'm still expected to be working and to be online. So, it's like, okay, before I go train, let me send a few emails. When I finish training, let me send a few emails. Match day, it's like, okay, I get to take half days. But again, there's still, that expectation and that responsibility that I have.
But that's good, right? In a way, because sports teaches you discipline and all that, but the corporate, the balance of both those things at the same time, I think is a great experience for you in terms of how to balance both responsibilities in life, if I'm not wrong. So are you still playing in? Sorry, go on.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you playing in Dubai these days, or like, is there a league going on? Is there a regular football?
Yeah. So we do have a women's league called the Arabian Women's Football League. For the time being, it is just an amateur women's league, but again, it's still a league that operates consistently, professionally, and it's reliable, so the women who are a part of it, as well as young girls, it's not just women, it's all the way from under nines, all the way up to women's, and there's that consistency. So, we do have that opportunity to be playing, which is nice.
Yeah, that's good. Regular football. So speaking of which, you have played in the US, you have played in Dubai, but obviously your home country, your country of birth, Pakistan, you started playing there in 2018, if I'm not wrong. That was your first national women's championship. So tell us a bit about that. You started off with WAPDA. How did that happen? How did you join the domestic scene in Pakistan? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, so actually the first team I played with, you're right, it was 2018. And I came over for the women's national championship, which was in Lahore that year, I believe. And I was playing with Royal Eagles at the time, which I think was a fresh, brand new club team. And it just so happened that, a couple of the girls, I believe one of the goalkeepers, had actually come over to Dubai to play in the women's league for a season. So from there, obviously, because the community is very small here in the UAE, you get to know all the girls and all the women. And so I just had the opportunity, and, I found out that, Pakistan had a national team. They had,
that was your first exposure.
I had no idea. I had no idea. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew. I wish I knew sooner. But again, these things happen for a reason, and the timing, it was supposed to happen when it was supposed to happen. So, so I made my way over to the domestic circuit, in Pakistan, just by chance. I was just fortunate enough that a couple players from the Pakistan, club teams were playing over in Dubai. So it was just word of mouth and a little bit of good timing.
And I'm sure talent. They saw how you played, and that did the trick. So how was that first women's championship like? Did you that was your first exposure to the fact that Pakistan had a national team, a national league that was going on. So once you got on the ground and saw what it was like, what was the experience like for you?
I think for me, it was just eye-opening. It was rejuvenating. It was, I felt like a sense of hope. I mean, again, at the time, like, I didn't know all of the problems with the federation and what was happening politically or anything like that. So I think for me to kind of come in with these fresh eyes and just see the potential, because I think, once all the political stuff and everything kind of clogs the ecosystem and everything that's happening, we forget to remember and forget to see, all the beautiful stuff that's kind of happening around. And I think because I was naive, I didn't know what to expect. I went in like open-minded, no expectations at all. I think for me, it was such a beautiful experience because I got to see so many different women and girls from so many different parts of Pakistan that just want to play.
Yeah.
And again, it's when you grow up outside and people talk to you about, Pakistan and, countries similar to Pakistan, they don't think that all of this stuff is happening. And it's like, well, now I can say, yeah, look, it is happening and there is potential. And, it's something to look out for in the future.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I think the potential is definitely there. I mean, like you said, I mean, the stuff that's going on upstairs, like in the administrative and the bureaucratic capacities, that sometimes overshadows what's happening on the pitch. But we should still be able to see it for what it is, which is that there's a lot of exciting talent in there, which just needs some push from those people at the top. But speaking of this upcoming championship, starting on 8th March, how excited are you to finally do it again after 3 years?
I'm so excited. And I think also just like kind of like going off the back of, all the hype that came like with the women's national team camp and just the kind of the momentum that's been able to get generated. It's so exciting, so many different girls like were part of that national camp. And now we get to see, like, now that girls, we have that little bit of extra motivation now, like, okay, I'm participating in this tournament because I want to be a part of the national team because I see that there's activity happening. So I think we're going to see a very different national championship this year.
Very competitive.
That's going to be really competitive.
Yeah.
These girls, like, all the girls I've been in touch with and that I met at camp and that I've known from 2018 when I first came over, everyone's training, everyone's excited, everyone's ready to kind of put their best foot forward. So it's real. I'm really excited. And, I can't wait to see how much, these girls have improved since, October, since the last national championship. So get excited.
I certainly am. So speaking of
get excited. Everyone should be getting excited.
Everyone listen really up fun. You have to get excited. So I mean, going back to October, you talked about the camp. I had the pleasure of being there. I saw how good it was, but just tell our listeners and our viewers how that experience was, and why was it so different from what people expected and what people had experienced before?
Oh my gosh. So the first thing I think about is when we all came back from camp that Monday, we came back from camp, I think it ended on a Sunday or something, or Saturday. And I remember, all of us girls had to go back to work on that Monday, and we were all just like messaging each other like, oh my God, do I have to be here? Like, we were like seriously, like just reminiscing about how amazing, those 7 or 10 days were that we had at camp. And I think for me, what I really, really enjoyed about camp was, again, just the level of professionalism, the quality, the girls' ability and the girls' willingness to be open-minded and receptive to coaching. You'll be able, you were there, you can see girls, they improved over 3 days.
Yes.
With the type of training we were having, the frequency of the training, the frequency of the recovery, the food, it was a great experience. And I think to be able to see those girls develop over such a short span of time. Like, I can only imagine if we have 1 month together, 2 months together, or if we just meet frequently, I can only imagine, how positive that can be.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing because I remember the first day, and then I remember the second last day or the last day, and it was like, I mean, there was a whole different team, which is like a testament to the players and how well and how quickly they took on the ideas of the coaching staff, and the coaching staff, as well as to how good they were in terms of the methods and the principles they wanted to get across. So speaking of that coaching staff, I just want to talk about Daniel Limones for a bit. He was obviously the coach that oversaw the whole women's camp. How was training under him? Did you expect it to be as fun and as good as it was? And any sort of insights into specific tactical principles or ideas that he focused on within that week?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest eye opener, because again, for me, the training and, the frequency and the intensity of it, it's stuff I've experienced in the past. But I think for Danny to come and understand, okay, I have 7 days or 10 days, however long it was, I have this amount of time. I need to, what can I do in that short amount of time? And the one thing that I remember so much is he's like, I'm going to teach these girls how to bite. And I'm sure you heard that time and time again, bite, bite, bite. And over that time, like, he instilled this value into the girls of, okay, if we're not the best on the ball, we are going to be the team that presses high, and we're going to press aggressive, and we're going to leave everything out on the pitch. And I think it was great because if you look at that kind of first scrimmage we had together on that first day versus the game that we played on the last day against those boys, like you said, two completely different teams.
Yeah.
And again, it's because Danny was able to instill a tactic over that and a theme over that week, and we implemented it. So I think, it was amazing for the amount of time that we had. And what he was able to get out of each individual player, because his work didn't stop after we left the pitch. His work continued because he would take time with each individual player and say, okay, this is what I need out of you. This is what you can do. This is what I need you to execute. So again, just spending that time off the field, and also just making sure that each player's mental health was good and was strong, because
that's really important.
Keep in mind, like you said, it's the first time in 7 years that we've had that activity, or that, some of these girls have had that, national team experience. So their minds are all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I think for everyone to just kind of be in a good space mentally, like, it was the first time, like, I feel like I've been a part of a camp where there was like no drama. Everyone was super excited, just wanted to be around each other, despite the huge age differences and the huge age gaps. We felt like a family.
Awesome. I mean, speaking of the age gaps, one thing that I felt and everyone was talking about in a good way about the camp was the great mix of older and younger players. So there were some experienced players like yourself, like Hajra, like Khatija, and then there were a lot of younger players like Aliza and a whole host of other young talented players. So how impressed were you at the amount of young talent, the next generation of women's footballers? Because I know that was the big talking point in the camp.
Oh my God, my jaw like drops every time I speak about these young girls. I'm so excited for them. When I look at the 15, 16-year-olds that we had at camp versus the 15, 16-year-olds that I see abroad, I'm telling you, there's not a big gap in difference, apart from maybe muscle mass.
Of course.
The girls
that can be worked on. That's the easy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But again, that raw talent, the technical ability, the potential, like, it's there. And it just gets me really excited, and like my face lights up, and I just get so happy to know, like, if things can keep progressing the way they are within the federation, and if we can just get the right support, these girls have a very bright future ahead of them.
That's awesome. So just on a last note, I wanted to talk to you about, I mean, it's all been really positive so far, and that's great because there's a lot of positive stuff going on. But we obviously, when we talk about women's football in Pakistan, we need to also talk a bit about how we can improve, how we can develop this further, and what the barriers are. Even right now in Pakistan, I mean, because of the culture that we live in, the society that we live in, the barriers are slightly different to what you might have in terms of opportunities abroad. So can you tell me what your views are about how we can move in the right direction, and how we can make it easier for not only young girls or women to play football, but also to develop our players locally?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing comes, and again, you're spot on in the sense of, the challenges that, girls face and women face in sports is very different across different cultures, across different countries. But I think the one thing that, can happen and that can help support, the development of women's football and young girls football in Pakistan. And you see, we always focus on women's, I think what needs to happen, there needs to be that system and that ecosystem in place for grassroots.
Yeah.
Whether it's for even for the boys side, like, to be honest,
100%. I mean, it's not like
happening.
The boys side is like our world beaters or something. I mean, it's struggling across the board.
It is. And that's the thing, is I think if we can get just like a grassroots system in place for both girls and boys, I think that's a very strong start. And then in parallel, working on consistently providing competition, and whether it's a league, whether it's, quarterly tournaments, whatever it is for women. I think those two things can go hand in hand. But most importantly, it's going to have to be that grassroots, It has to start with the grassroots, because if you look at the age in which players are more receptible to development and training, it's those ages of 7 to 12, or from 6 until 13, etc. And that's when children really develop their technical ability. So I think just giving that opportunity at a much younger age, I think is vital. Like, it has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, that's the next step that we achieve, because we're on the right track under Danny and under the current the system. Anyway, Maya, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I had a lot of fun during this half hour talking to you about everything that's been going on recently and your career as well. And I mean, I just really excited to see you in the upcoming championship. Really excited to see all the female footballers that were part of the camp and ones that weren't, because I think we'll see some amazing talent that's been like slipping under the rock, so to speak. So I mean, best of luck. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been great. Everyone, do check out the National Women Football Championship beginning on 8th March. Do support our athletes, whether they're men or women. We really, really need that. And there's a lot of talented players across the board in Pakistan. Do check it out. Do check out WAPDA and Maria, who's going to be pinging them balls in from central midfield. It's been great having you, Maria, once again. Thank you so much. Until next time, take it easy.